Hello, long time no see. I am here to finally do the wrap up for these two wonderful books that our book group Books Love Everyone read together in the month of June. So we read, for our nonfiction choice, The Dirty Life by Kristen Kimball. This is a memoir, and Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. The reason that we read these two books together, my reasoning was that they were both about women in farming. And my understanding of Hannah Coulter, having never read it before, knowing really nothing much about it, my understanding of Hannah Coulter was that it was very much going to be about people leaving the land. And it is about that, but it's about so much more. This is a very short little volume. It comes in at less than 200 pages. It's 186 pages of descriptive, evocative, but very simple, straightforward storytelling. It is, if Hannah Coulter was a real person, this would basically be a memoir of her life. She's not a real person, she's a fictional person, but in that way, she is every person, right? She is kind of an archetype for a way of life, a way of thinking that she's trying to hold on to, this kind of optimistic faith, even as her whole world falls apart multiple times. So the first time it falls apart is within the first couple of pages, and I won't tell you everything. There will be maybe some spoilers in this, but not many. But in the beginning, we meet Hannah, and she has lost her mother, but what's really tearing everything apart is that her father is getting remarried to a woman who has two sons, and she really cares only about her two sons and the money that the man is bringing in. It's a little bit Cinderella-esque feeling, but there's also like the fairy godmother kind of role is played by Hannah's grandmother, who, when this new woman moves into the house, moves herself from like a main living area into the kitchen. She moves her bed into the kitchen, she lives in the kitchen, she makes her kitchen her domain, and this becomes Hannah's saving grace. And this is really why her grandmother does it. She's like, I know that I'm gonna need to raise this child. I know that I'm gonna need to be the one to love this child. I know that I'm gonna be the one that needs to give to this child and make sure that she has a life in this world that is not regulated to serving this woman who's come in, who doesn't even like her and has no intention to raise her. So the grandmother is like the fairy godmother person in this story. The father is just, he's there and he loves her, but he's changed alliances. His whole life has changed too. And he does love her. He does care for her deeply, and she him. But, he's also got a wife that he needs to take care of now and two sons that he needs to raise. And so that is kind of the beginning of this. Grandma makes sure that Hannah gets a good education. Hannah is a very smart girl. She gets a good education all the way to the end of 8th grade. And then grandma makes sure that she gets moved into the city, that she gets put into a safe and respectable boarding house. And the boarding house woman makes sure that she meets some nice young men, and Hannah eventually ends up falling in love and getting married and losing her first husband in the war. And she continues for many, many years to live with her in-law to raise her child. And that's like the first 20 pages. It goes on from there. It's such a beautiful and uplifting and thought-provoking story. It talks about farm life. It talks about Hannah, obviously. It talks about love. It's not a romance, but there's romance in it. It's talking about all different kinds of love, all different kinds of community. It's really talking about community. It's really talking about how we are all in this together. There's a whole chapter on war, which is really about the responsibility that we have to each other because we have responsibility to ourselves. If we exist, we do not exist alone. There is a lot in here about the land and about community. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book, and I intend now to go back and read all of the books in this series. I pulled this from the middle of the series, and I know from the other titles of books in the series that many of the characters that are in this get their own featured book in the series, and I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone in this community. And it is an entire world that he's created, complete with a map and family trees. So I love this. I'm committed to this. And next year I'm going to be doing a series where I read every book in this series, a series of videos, a series of reviews, where I read every book in this series, starting from the beginning and moving on to the end, and rereading Hannah Coulter in the midst, because this is beautiful. When I was reading this, I couldn't stop recommending it to people. So yes, I read it with the people who read books, love everyone book club books with me, but I also put it into the hands of about 5 people at work and recommended it to a bunch of friends, and realized that one of my best friends from college has always loved this book. This was an invitation to a longer journey is what this was. And I highly, highly recommend it, because I'm going to do my good news videos where I share what I wrote where I share what I record in my commonplace books, quotes from the reading that I'm doing in my commonplace books, because I'm going to do July and August together, or June, because I'm going to do June and July together as one post next month, just because I got really behind because I went on summer break. I am going to just go through and pick a couple of quotes to read to you from here right now. So in writing about the war, she writes, wars, World War I and II. She writes, "There were several from Port William who went and fought and came home and lived to be old men here, whose memories contained in silence the farthest distances of the world. Terrible sights, terrible sufferings. Some of them were heroes, and they said not a word. They stood among us like monuments without inscriptions. They said nothing or said little because we have barely a language for what they knew, and they could not bear the pain of talking of their knowledge, and even so poor a language as we have." After the death of her first husband, she writes, well, she doesn't write anything, she's a fictional character, Windleberry, as Hannah Coulter writes. "At first, as the months went by, it was shameful to me when I would realize that without my consent, almost without my knowledge, something had made me happy. And then I learned to think when those times would come, well, go ahead. If you're happy, then be happy. No big happiness came to me yet, but little happinesses did come, and they came from ordinary pleasures and ordinary things. The baby, sunlight, breezes, animals and birds, daily work, rest when I was tired, food, strands of fog in the hollows early in the morning, butterflies, flowers. The flowers didn't have to be dahlias and roses either, but just the weeds blooming in the fields and the daisies and the yarrow. I began to trust the world again, not to give me what I wanted, for I saw that it could not be trusted to do that, but to give me unforeseen goods and pleasures that I had not thought to want. And so unknowingly, I was being prepared." And I'll stop reading that sentence because it gives away something. But I think those 2 quotes really beautifully encapsulate how this book, though short, doesn't hurry. It doesn't waste a single word. It slowly, gently develops a depth of character and insight that you would think would need to be rushed in such a short tale. But it covers an entire lifespan, a very long lifespan, focusing on the things that you and I may not focus on, and gives such a beautiful perspective of the world. It makes the world and all its pain beautiful in the light of all its joy. I loved this. I loved this, and so did the rest of us. We all loved this. We were all greatly impacted by this book. Yay, Wendleberry. We paired that this month with a memoir by Kristen Kimball, The Dirty Life. And where this book was soothing, this book stressed me out. This is the story of a woman from the big city who is a kind of pushy, go-getter, no-nonsense, self-confident, self-reliant reporter. And she goes to interview this farmer, and she goes to interview this farmer. But he's so busy that it takes days of her remaining on the farm or coming back to the farm to get that interview. In the meantime, she ends up doing all sorts of things in order to bide the time. She cooks huge meals for people she doesn't know, in a kitchen she doesn't know, using resources she doesn't know. She slaughters a pig. Maybe she doesn't actually slaughter it, but she takes it apart for processing. She processes a hog. She's never done it before. This is a book about a woman who falls in love with a man who lives a life that's very, very, very different from her own. And she goes all in. I feel like she goes all in. There was some question about whether or not she actually likes this lifestyle. As a couple, they commit to creating a farm that can sustain an entire community. They make that their goal, and they do that. And the weight of that, the responsibility of that, weighs very, very heavily on them and on you as the reader as you're reading this. Yes, these are about two farm women, but they are about two farm women with two very different outlooks on life and two very different personalities. And yes, maybe this is romanticized. This is not romanticized in any way, shape, or form, although it is a romance. More so than this is a romance. Because this woman falls in love with this farmer guy who, I don't get it. Not farmers, but this guy in particular. Because she falls in love with him, she does a lot of things that she wouldn't normally do, and it changes for the better a lot of lives and a lot of systems, and you're reading about the systems that need changing and the lives that need supporting, and it's all very important. It's very important. But the whole time I'm reading it, I'm wondering, why is she writing this? Because she does not make this life sound appealing. She does not make this life sound like she even enjoys it. I think she loves it. She doesn't enjoy it. Those are two different things. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, what's the goal? What's the author's purpose? And I still don't know that I fully comprehend the author's purpose. I enjoyed both of these books. I enjoyed reading both of these books. I found them both incredibly fascinating. The longer I have sat with The Dirty Life, the more I have pondered her choices. The way in which everything feels so hard and so frenzied and so big. And here, everything moves at a totally different pace. And I just wonder how much of an influence on our current society, or how much of an influence our current society and its priorities has on the experience that this woman has as opposed to the experience that this woman has. I don't know if that made sense, but those are my thoughts. I will not wait so long to do the wrap up for July. It will come out at the normal time. I hope that you will read at least Hannah Coulter, but reading them together is a really interesting experience. In the meantime, let's go read.